Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
For those of you that don't know, I don't know if this man needs any introduction, but I want to let you know that Brien Foerster has been a researcher for many, many years. He's been focusing on Peru and the Paracas people. I hope I'm saying that correctly. You've probably seen him on Ancient Aliens a few times, and he's on Facebook sharing these wonderful videos of drone footage of like Machu Picchu and all these other great sites. So without further ado, I want to welcome back my friend Brien Foerster, who's joining us live from, you're in Peru, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Paracas, Peru.
Oh, okay. Very good. So welcome back to the show, Brien. It's great to see you. How are you today?
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, we're very glad you're here, and I thought it would be great to kind of reintroduce everybody to your work. I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers probably already know who you are, but I thought it would be great to kind of just remind us what got you involved in this. What was it that drew you into the people of Peru and or the ancient civilizations and the mystery of the elongated skulls? How did you stumble upon that?
Well, I've been a fan and aficionado of indigenous culture since I was very small, growing up on the west coast of Canada. I actually became a professional totem pole carver for a while.
Oh, nice.
And then my interest was drawn to Polynesia, so I spent several years with Polynesian people in different island groups, learning about the history and origins. And when I reached a point where I was kind of satisfied with what I knew, then all of a sudden Peru suddenly popped up in my head, and I thought, oh, maybe I should go visit Peru. And when I first came here, I was just amazed at the scale of the megalithic sites and all the ancient mysteries that are here, which are not properly explained by standard academia.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so when was your first experience, I guess, seeing one of these skulls or being able to dig deeper into them?
Well, I saw them on, growing up, I would see them on TV shows like In Search of and alternative shows like that, but it was when I first went to the little Paracas Museum of Senor Juan Navarro that he had a mummified elongated head on display, and I was in minor shock about it, and he told me he had many more at home, and so the next day he brought more to look at. When I looked on the internet for information about these ancient people, there were very few references to why they had elongated heads, which I found very strange, and that's what began my interest in pursuit, because if the academics don't want to really understand who these ancient people were, then I took it upon myself to do that.
And thank you for that. It seems that mainstream archaeology it kind of hides a lot of stuff if it doesn't fall into the empirical model of what they're saying is a fact. And it's important for researchers like you to dig into the deeper knowledge of what I like to call the hidden archaeology. So thank you for that. And what were some of the things that you found? What were some of the first things that you found to be perhaps anomalous or not in keeping with the standard mainstream data?
Well, the main thing is that all academics, as far as I know, believe that all elongated heads are the result of cranial deformation or head binding, starting with newborn babies. But then anomalous skulls would start showing up that appeared to look natural. They were way too complicated to simply be the result of head binding. And so I was able to classify the differences between this minority of about 4% that appeared to be natural in form, and then the 96% that were obviously examples of head binding. And as time has been going on, I've been able to see other examples of incredibly anomalous skulls, including those of newborn babies, which are clearly extremely elongated, so they could not be the result of any kind of head binding.
Wow. And, and we've all seen, well, many of us in this field or who are interested in this type of stuff, we've all seen the pictures of these entire skeletons with the skulls that are elongated. And, we've always wondered, where did it come from, or kind of, like you said, they were born with it. Is it shown to be a deformation, or is it, or I saw that there was some DNA research that shows that it's not necessarily a human?
Well, the first test we did, which was probably 5 years ago, was only one specimen, and the geneticist said that there were a number of segments of DNA that didn't correspond with anything known to be human, because basically all haplogroups or genetic ancestry has been mapped as far as we know. So that was anomalous. And then we did some further testing about 3 years ago of 4 samples of 4 different individuals, and they showed either European or Middle Eastern DNA. So that breaks the idea that all native people of the Americas crossed the Bering Land Bridge, because it's shown that most descendants or native people living in the Americas, their ancestors came from the Siberia region. This is clearly something different. The most profound example was quite recent at a little museum in a village called Patapatani in Bolivia on the shore of Lake Titicaca. There is a complete elongated skull with full skeleton. I was able to go with a radiologist from the US, and when he looked at it, he said, that can't be Homo sapiens sapiens. And sitting right next to it in another case was the fetus of a probably 9-month-old stillborn baby whose head was the size of its torso. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. What was your conclusion or your hypotheses on what that child was? Was it ape-like? Was it alien? Was it a mixture of both, a hybrid or something, or what?
Well, I let that was in the afternoon we saw this, and the radiologist and I didn't talk anymore about it for the rest of the day because we were in just so much shock. But the next morning at breakfast, he came up to me and he said, I'm 90% sure that was mother and baby, and that they both died during childbirth. The 2 of them were found in the same burial in a royal tomb, so that meant that they were nobility of some kind, which is typical of the elongated skull people. They were the nobility of any civilization. They weren't the common people. And so he kept emphasizing that what he was looking at was not Homo sapiens sapiens. So that opens it up to the possibility that it's a lost lineage of humanity, or he's open to the possibility that they could be hybrids of some kind.
Yeah. So to help us understand a little bit about these people, I know that you've done some research. Can you tell us a bit about the civilization? How long ago was it, and were they related to the Incan, the Mayan?
Well, actually, the most intriguing elongated skulls in the world are found either at Lake Titicaca in Peru and Bolivia, or Paracas on the coast of Peru. Other examples were found all over the earth, mainly about 2,000 years ago, but they tend to be examples of cranial deformation. So that's the most important point. The Paracas culture is believed to have spontaneously appeared on the coast of Peru about 800 BC and then disappeared about 100 AD. If you ask an honest archaeologist, they will tell you they don't know where these people came from. They just suddenly seem to be a full-blown civilization. So that indicates to me, at least, that they came from somewhere else. And that's why we're pursuing the DNA study, because with the DNA testing that's being done now, since there will be about 50 samples being analyzed, that'll give us a better indication of where they fit in or don't fit in terms of ancient people.
Right, right. And if I remember correctly, you guys have seen or have found examples with red hair, which is not very common. What is that? I guess does that add to the hypothesis they came from somewhere else?
Yeah, definitely, because red hair actually comes from the Middle East. It's from ancient tribes in Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And these people are being persecuted to this very day. And so there are groups of people in the Middle East that are trying to eradicate these ancient bloodlines. So most people would think that red hair comes from Scandinavia or Ireland, but it's not. If you're Irish, you can trace your ancestry back to the Middle East based on the red hair. And so this is a dark reddish hair, which is genetic. That's been proven. And red hair corresponds with light skin color. So again, those are two attributes which you don't tend to link with Native American people. And also red hair and light skin also correspond with usually green or very light brown or even blue eyes. So those are indications that whoever these ancient Paracas were, they were not the result of having purely ancient Peruvian Native American DNA.
Right. Now, anthropologically, were they separate from, do we know if they lived separately from the other cultures, or did they intermingle or interbreed? Was there any evidence of that?
Well, the population was probably quite small because the Paracas area is extreme desert. It only gets about half an inch of rain a year, so all of the water runs underground, and it has to be tapped into, and that's part of the reason why the Nazca line system was built, for example. So my theory is that this area began to turn from savanna into more like desert about 2,000 years ago. And that caused a tribal people from slightly to the north called the Topara to invade the Paracas territory. And I believe that they exterminated the royal Paracas bloodline, or at least tried to. And the Topara people, turns out, become what we call the Nazca People. Oh. And the Nazca People were not very tall. They were true Native American people in that they had darkest skin, black hair, and it's at this time that the red hair disappears and the elongated skulls disappear. But what I think happened was that the Paracas royalty, or at least some of them, were able to escape, taking an ancient road that led all the way to Cusco in Peru, in the highlands, and that the Paracas became part of the seed of a culture that was to arrive slightly later, which we call the Inca.
Oh. Oh, very interesting. Okay. I was wondering if they continued onward, or I know you said that they disappeared quite quickly, but to know that perhaps they mingled with the Incas is very, very interesting. Now, you said that you have some new information about the elongated skulls. What have you been working on recently when it comes to researching them?
Well, let's see. About 5 months ago, I received a phone call, and this person who was actually is the grandson of Senior Juan Navarro of the Paracas Museum, who died almost 2 years ago, said he had a new specimen for me to look at. And when he brought it for me to look at, it was the newborn head of a baby that clearly was of the Paracas culture, which is twice the size of a normal human baby. It is a cone head, and it had red hair. Again, the cranial volume twice as much as a normal baby. So that is another indication that the ancient Paracas, the original people, were born with elongated heads. So that's the latest one.
Very interesting.
And we're hoping, we've been working with the Peruvian government's Ministry of Culture to do DNA testing of 15 different Paracas skeletons from 2,000 plus years ago. And that process took 30 months. The samples were taken to one lab in Canada and another in the United States in June. And so I believe December 15th, we're going to have a major press conference either in Houston or in Los Angeles with the latest results of the 50 samples that were taken.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh, we're so glad to hear that. That's great. So, in reference to the elongated skull people, I'm guessing, and actually I know through your work and through what you've been saying, that they have been found around the world. Has there been any connection that they're the same people, or is it just the head binding tradition that you're finding in other locations, perhaps?
Well, the most intriguing ones, again, you find cranial deformation in many different ancient cultures, from Melanesia to the Congo to Germany to England. Like actually England, this is the work of Maria Wheatley.
Yeah.
In the area of Stonehenge, you have these burials which are called long barrows, and also you have round barrows. And in the long barrows, elongated skull people have been found. So that may have been who actually made Stonehenge. But the most intriguing and ancient examples are found in between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, in Georgia and Armenia and areas like that. And I believe that we'll find a connection between the people who live there and the Paracas. I think that ancient people who lived in that area were forced out of the area by invading forces, and these people had to take to the sea, probably through the Persian Gulf, and then wound up moving through the Indian Ocean and then Pacific Ocean, and wound up on the coast of Peru because it was largely unpopulated, and there they could live in peace and also redevelop their ancient culture, because the textiles are strikingly similar between the Middle East and what we find on the coast of Peru. They seem to have knowledge of the potter's wheel, and they do navigation. So that's presently what I'm working on.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And as far as, let's say, their technology, have you found that they have similar styles or similar building methods and tools, perhaps, in these elongated skull people's regions? Or what have you seen as far as that's concerned?
Well, what's quite intriguing, again, is that this area gets half an inch of rain a year. So if you didn't have underground water that was traveling in underground streams coming from the Andes, which of course are snow-packed peaks, there's no way anything could survive here, because on the surface, literally there are areas quite close to me where even a cactus can't grow. Oh, wow. So these people either had to learn rapidly, but I don't think they did. I think they brought knowledge from their ancient homeland, which again may be between the Caspian and Black Sea, or maybe somewhere in the Middle East, where of course those ancient people, again, there's no surface water in general, so they had to figure out where underground water was. The Paracas were able to create massive amounts of agriculture by simply digging down towards the water table. And even to this day, the water table is somewhere between, depending on, in the flat areas, between 3 and 6 feet underground. So I think that's a major connection. Also, for some strange reason, there are thousands upon thousands of date palms here, which of course originate from the Middle East, and there's no practical function of them in this area. Dates grow in clusters of like 50 or 100 pounds, and they simply fall to the ground. Nobody collects them, nobody processes them. There's no history of anybody ever utilizing the date palm, but why they would be located here if they weren't brought here on purpose doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I never knew that. Very, very interesting. They don't even make date wine?
No, they make date nothing. They just let them rot.
Wow. So it's never really been a part of the culture, at least not the modern culture, to utilize them at all.
Yeah, some scholars think that the Spanish brought them, but the Spanish would only bring something that was really functional, because you're taking it from Spain all the way at least to Panama. Then you have to cross over Panama, build a new ship, and then head down the Pacific coast, or you have to go around the southern end of South America to get to Peru. So you would only bring something that would be very practical.
Right.
And so, since there's no history whatsoever of the use of the date palm here, then I don't think the Spanish brought them.
Wow. Well, we are up on a commercial break. When we return, we're going to continue our discussion with Brien Foerster. Stick around. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes. You're listening to the Just Bernard Show on Revolution Radio.